So we're gonna be taking off the blade for a brush cutter here. The reason why you'd be doing this is for a couple reasons. For troubleshooting reasons, if the blade has excessive vibration, it's likely because something has become dislodged within here. So we're gonna take a look at it by removing it. The other reason why is if you're swapping to a blender blade. So as I put this dowel in the back here, this is gonna make it so the blade can no longer spin. Don't worry if there's debris right here that's gonna get pushed in with the pin. We're gonna be cleaning that out anyway. So you can just shove it right in there, and as you push down, rotate it until you feel it lock in. Now it's not gonna move. Now that it's in there, I'm gonna flip this upside down so we can get to that nut. Now, the nuts on these are reverse thread, so I'm going to twist it towards myself here. If I can't get it. There we go. Yeah, so instead of righty tighty, lefty loosey, it's going to be lefty tighty, righty loosey with reverse threads. This is common on almost any blade, so that when the blade spins, it doesn't unscrew the nut. There's a few types of designs with these. Some of them are gear shaped with splines that need to be seated in with the washer. This one just has two flat sides. Now that I've got the blade removed, along with the washer that was on top of it, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this guy. If I'm struggling to grab this like I am here, I can actually take the dowel and push it farther. It's gonna lift it up for me. Thank you. See, there's some grime in here. We're gonna wanna clean all of that off while we're in here anyway. That way, we're not gonna risk friction starting a fire or something like that. So I'm gonna clean that off and we'll be right back. All right, so now that we've got these all cleaned off, something to note is that this plate here is not removable on this one, but on most of them it is. And the way you're gonna know which way it should go on is it'll be slightly domed, and you want the dome to be on the top. So you want it to, seal at the edges basically. And the only purpose of this is to keep debris, like the stuff we pushed through with our dowel earlier, from dropping freely into the back of this, because that amount of friction would likely start, make it catch fire. So I'm just gonna put this guy back on. And as I'm doing it, I'm just gonna see that it sits flush on the dowel here. And I'm also going to push on it just to make sure that the dowel is not keeping the assembly lifted, because we don't want that. If we do that, it'll likely make it so that things don't fit correctly at the end here. So replacing all these components, I clean these all so there's no debris that I'm leaving in here. You want to make sure that it's all clean while we're in there, while you have the chance. So if you're putting a blender blade onto it, you see it's too small here. I'm going to make sure the spacer is on. I can do that first, or I can do it with it if it's a tighter spacer. And you want to make sure it's sitting flush like that. Often what will happen is as you put your spacer on, this washer will slip off. You put the spacer on, that looks the same, doesn't it? You could even tighten it like this, but the spacer is no longer sitting flush on there. So this requires a visual inspection. Don't guess about it. You're gonna wanna make sure that this is correct before you're doing it. As you're putting this on, another thing that will often happen is as you go to put the nut on and you're trying to make sure this isn't spinning, this is going to keep spinning because this is not attached to where the dowel is. The dowel is still locking the screw here. So you don't need to worry about this being loose while you're tightening this. Another thing is, since that dowel can push on the assembly, if you push too hard on it while you're making sure, see, I made sure at the beginning it wasn't pushing too far, but now this all looks like this is as far as it goes, and I can even push down and it feels like it's seated correctly, but this dowel is actually pushing on it. So I'm going to remove that dowel, put it back down, rotate it for a moment, make sure it's still locked. It is, keeping that push all the way down. I'm going to verify visually that the blade and the washer are still centered. I'm not going to touch anything else. I know it's locked. I'm going to gently turn this washer until it locks over and it's seating flush. And then I'm going to screw on the nut remembering that it is lefty tighty. You see, even this blade, even though this blade spins freely, I can tighten this nut because the shaft is still locked. So I'm gonna finish with the scrunch. And the blender blades are likely the thing that you will tighten tighter than any other piece of equipment. Normally you don't want to risk over torquing things, but these actually do require a pretty hefty amount of strength when you are tightening them to make sure they won't move. See, now the blade won't move, so it's locked, and now it's all tightened. If this blade still moves, it's because that washer was off center and you tightened something incorrectly. Same thing if it doesn't move, but it vibrates too much once you've reassembled it. So I'm gonna remove this dowel, give it a spin. Everything looks all right. Once it starts, if that vibration is gone, we did a good job. If it's still there, I'm actually gonna go back in here and see what I did wrong, make sure everything's flush, put it back together. 9 times out of 10, that's gonna fix your problem.